Hey everybody, I have another unboxing today. As you can see, obviously it's the LG G7 ThinQ. The unit that I tested when I was in Korea, I had to be given back to LG at the end of the trip because that unit was running very raw software. Although I really couldn't tell the difference. I thought it operated pretty smoothly. But this one now, it's a more final version. It's still a pre-production unit, but it's more retail ready than the unit I was testing in Seoul. I'm glad to see right off the bat that this is a blue color because the unit that I tested was silver. And then if you guys watch my videos, you know that I always prefer either black or blue. I think silver is a little bit boring, and I just don't like red and gold. They're just not for me. I think a lot of American dudes would agree with me too. If we have to pick a device, either black or blue. So I'm glad I got the blue phone. I was kind of worried it was gonna be like the pink one, the raspberry rose one, which looks great, but it's just not for me. Like it would look good on like a lot of other people. So as usual, there's a microfiber cloth out of the box, just like on the V30. So the packaging is quite simple, very similar to the V30's box in fact. So you have a SIM ejector tool, a US plug. Finally, I actually don't have many US fast charging plugs. I usually, when devices are shipped to me, they're either the China plug or the South Korea plug. So finally I have a US one because I'm actually American. I go back to the US every now and then. So and you have a micro USB cable. Okay, so that's it actually. This is a pre-production unit. So I'm pretty sure the retail unit will have more stuff in there, maybe like earphones, and those instruction booklets. And if you're an American and using AT&T or whatever, it'll have that like, hey, don't drink and drive, or don't text and drive, whatever. So alright guys, this is going to be an in-depth review of the LG G7. That's because I use this phone as my main daily driver for 8 days. And also on top of that, I used the phone for 3 or 4 days in Korea. So total I used this phone for about 11 or 12 days now, 8 of which was very heavy usage as my main phone. It was on me basically 17 hours a day. So first, let's talk a little bit about the hardware design. So you might be thinking, there's not much to talk about. This is yet another 2018 Android with a notch, just like the Huawei P20 Pro, or the Oppo R15, or the Vivo V9, or the Vivo X21, or the upcoming OnePlus 6, or the Asus Zenfone 5, so and so. But LG actually does something slightly different, and I quite like it. So a little bit of history first. So LG, they're pretty good at pioneering smartphone trends. So the LG G6 was actually the first phone on the market to go with that taller or wider, however you hold the phone, aspect ratio of 18:9. Before that, all phones generally had a 16:9 aspect ratio, which was the screen was a little bit wider. LG decided that if you go over 18:9, it will make the phone a little bit easier to grip, easier to use one-handed because it's not as wide across. So LG did that first, followed by Samsung, and then after that everybody followed suit. Now every modern day smartphone has a aspect ratio that's taller than 16:9. So LG actually went and pushed that even further this year with the G7. This is a whopping 19.5:9 aspect ratio. That means the screen is even taller than usual. So that means even though the Huawei P20 Pro and the LG G7 has the same screen size, technically they're both 6.1 inches. The LG G7 is actually kind of noticeably thinner than the Huawei P20 Pro. I mean, look at how much wider the P20 Pro is, because even though the Huawei P20 Pro is 6.1 inches, it is 6.1 inches at 18.5:9 aspect ratio, whereas LG bumps it up to 19.5, so the screen, it's a little bit taller and shrinks a little bit. This makes the LG G7 one of the slimmest phones from left to right that I've held in my hands yet. The only phone slimmer, it's the Galaxy S8 and S9, and that phone has a smaller screen. I'm talking about modern flagships obviously, so I'm not including like the iPhone 4 with like a tiny ass screen. So on the back of the phone, it's that same glass design that, you know, every flagship has now. LG's made some changes to the fingerprint sensor. In previous years, the fingerprint sensor is also the power button. So there's no longer a power button here, this is just a fingerprint sensor. Instead, the power button has been moved to the right side in a more traditional position. I'm a little bit sad about that because I personally have been a big fan of LG's G series for years. The LG G3 was actually my first Android device, and I know that the G2 and G3 were kind of really radical phones at the time because LG moved everything to the back. The volume button, the volume rockers were on the back, the power button was on the back, and at the time that was very crazy. I remember reading Android blogs and they were like, wow, like, it takes a long time to get used to, but I love that position because your finger is always back there anyway. So slowly LG has moved everything back to a more traditional position, which I think is a little bit sad because I like that LG tried things differently and I like that LG did things its own way. But ultimately, I guess, you know, LG has to appeal to the masses, to the kind of general consumers who probably just like things a little bit more basic with not so daring. But you know, LG really pioneered this design of the entire front is screen with no buttons. Like the G2 did that first and the G3 did that. When the G3 came out, you put that next to like the Samsung Galaxy S, what phone, I believe it was the S6 or like the iPhone 5S at the time, and then it wasn't even close. It was like those phones had chunky bezels and the button on the front was LG had all the buttons on the back and relatively slim bezels on the G3. So that phone was, I think that phone is up there in my top 5 or 6 smartphone designs ever, like along with the iPhone 4, the Xiaomi Mi Mix, and then probably the iPhone 10 too. So anyway, back to the hardware. So you have volume rockers on the left side, along with this button, which by now you probably know it's a Google Assistant button. You press it once and it launches Google Assistant. You're also able to hold the button and then to speak into it non-stop like a walkie-talkie, and then, you know, it'll keep listening until you let go of the button. So this is just like Bixby's setup, but a little bit better than Bixby because Google Assistant is a hell lot better than Bixby. So you see right now it's recording everything I'm saying. And on the bottom of the phone you have a USB-C port, speaker grill, which I'll cover later, and a headphone jack. So good to see that LG, like Samsung, did not follow that stupid trend of removing headphone jacks, because like a phone not having a headphone jack is not a deal breaker for me. So I like the Huawei P20 Pro a lot, even though it doesn't have a jack, but at the same time I acknowledge that it is a pointless decision that does not do anything for consumers. So anytime, you know, companies are doing something that doesn't benefit the consumers, I have to call it out. And it's kind of annoying that every other phone company except the Korean ones are removing the headphone jack. So let's talk a little bit about the display panel. So a lot of people, including myself, were a little bit disappointed initially when LG announced that this phone uses an LCD panel instead of OLED, because, you know, I think most people agree OLED tech is a little bit superior. But after using this phone for a week, I don't have any issues with this LCD choice at all. You know, it's a very punchy panel. It gets very bright. More on that later. And just, you know, this is like a flawless LCD panel, whereas LG V30's OLED panel was not flawless because it had that slight color shift, which, to be fair, I think it's a little bit overblown. I don't have any issue. I didn't really have any big problems with it, but, you know, people who are display purists had problems with it. And I just think this display, you're not going to have any issues at all. It's an awesome display. Looks great. And as I alluded to earlier and also covered in the hands-on, this phone has a special bright mode that LG developed that pumps up the brightness up to 1000 nits for 3 minutes at a time. So all you have to do is tap this button and bump it to 1000 nits, and then all of a sudden this phone, it's crazy bright. So you can use this outdoors without much issues. So another new features of the G7, as I've covered in the hands-on already, so I'll be quick here, it's the new boombox speakers. So LG used all the empty space inside the phone as a resonance chamber. So that means allowed sounds to travel through it and carry more weight, so sound comes out a little bit fuller. So this phone only has a single bottom fine speaker, but it gets louder than usual. So I will give you a sample really quick. Let me find a song that doesn't have copyright so I don't get sued by freaking YouTube. So we'll do LG. So this is noticeably louder than playing at max volume on other phones. And on top of that, you can put it onto a hollow surface and amplify the sound. It uses that area to amplify. Let me grab a box actually to try it. It comes out better. Okay, so I have an empty box, so that will work as an amplifier for this phone because sound is vibrating through the back of the phone, and this phone already has a large resonance chamber, and it will use this as a larger resonance chamber, and the sound will come out even louder. So you know, that sounded pretty good, but to be honest, this feature isn't really for me because first of all, Hong Kong's apartments are really small. So if I need to listen to something, a Bluetooth speaker or a wireless set of earbuds will take care of all of that. Very rarely do I need to use my phone as a loudspeaker. But you know, everybody's different, every market's different, and I can imagine this feature being popular in Korea and in the US. So let's talk a little bit about the software. So this phone runs Android 8.0 with LG Skin on top. LG Skin is a little bit divisive. A lot of American media people don't like it. I'm a bit more neutral. I don't love the software, but I don't dislike it. I think it looks pretty clean, and I like that they have these shortcut buttons here that you can tap the button to bring down notification shade. I also love, you know, I've talked about this before, I really love knock code because it allows me to unlock my phone very fast when it's sitting on a desk. On any other phone with a rear fingerprint reader, it's a little bit of a hassle because I have to press a button, swipe on it, and then enter my PIN. And then when I enter my PIN, I have to physically look at the screen to get the numbers right. So the whole process takes about 3 seconds. But on LG, I can just do this and unlock a phone. And I can do this without looking at the screen because I can tap anywhere. So knock code is one of my favorite software features. And so is double tap to lock the screen or double tap to wake the phone. These are awesome features that LG pioneered that I wish other Android makers would just kind of borrow. Now there are some negative too. So there's no app tray out of the box. There is an app tray that you can put in, but I still don't like that app tray because it's like you have to press a button on it and then you swipe left to right to bring up the app tray. I like Google's app tray. So this is not a Google phone, but I have Nova Launcher on it to make it run like a Google phone. So I really like this type of app tray where you swipe up and then you swipe up and down to go through your apps. It's very intuitive for me. The app tray on the LG software is just not good, so I decided I'm just not going to have an app tray and just have all my apps on the home screen like a damn iPhone. So I'm not a big fan of that. Little things about the software bugs me, but overall it's tolerable. You notice that I don't have Nova Launcher on this phone. That's because I'm able to accept LG software. I don't love it, but I don't hate it, so I can use it. Whereas on Oppo, so this is the Oppo device, I can't stand the software, so I have to put Nova Launcher on it. So there's a little bit of construction going on outside. I'm not sure if this video will pick up that noise. If you're hearing that, I apologize. But that's the sad nature of living in Hong Kong. It's an awesome city 80% of the time, but the other 20%, it's like there's no space and there's just always construction going on because things move really fast here, like Thanos. Like a snap of a finger, everything changes. So inside the phone is a Snapdragon 845. I mean, what more needs to be said? It's obviously a very powerful chipset and 6 gigs of RAM. So performance wise, absolutely zero issue, like no lag, no nothing. This is one of the fastest phones yet. Like you can jump between apps, quick switch and all that, everything loads fast. So let's talk a little bit about that notch. I covered this in my hands-on, so if you've already seen my hands-on, you could skip forward like a minute or two. So LG gives you an option to either hide the notch completely or kind of show it off which is what I'm doing with this kind of color. So I quite like it. I think it looks pretty unique. What I think it's silly is LG decided to call this area a new second screen, which I don't see why. I'll get into that a little bit more later, but I'll show you real quick. You're able to hide the notch by selecting an all black color, and after that it looks pretty natural in my opinion. So this is an LCD panel, so the blacks are not as deep as an OLED panel, but I think it looks fine. If you have this out in the sun, you'll be able to see that the black is not truly black, but then indoors and without direct sunlight, I think it looks fine. So you're able to hide the bezels pretty nicely here. If you want, you can change it to different kind of colors and gradients. So back to this new second screen. I don't know why LG decided to call it that because there's really no other features other than the ability to change the colors. So that's no different from how Huawei or Vivo handles the notch area. So calling a new second screen is a little bit disappointing. I was hoping that LG would use it like how the LG V10 or the LG V20, you know, that I had that second screen up top and then it displays notification in a ticker format. It would be awesome if LG actually did that here. So if, let's say for example I'm in Instagram and I get a notification, I get a WhatsApp message and it just pops up right here, like saying like, I don't know, like John saying, hey, where are you? Slide across. I mean, the space here is a little bit tight for that, but it would be cool. And it's fine that LG didn't come up with anything to do with this notch area, but I just don't know why they call it a new second screen. See, conversely, the Oppo R15 Pro actually does something useful with the notch. So I'll show you really quick. So anytime you're holding the phone in landscape mode, such as watching video, you're able to swipe from the notch area and bring up this kind of shortcut menu, and you're able to bring up WhatsApp or screen record or grab a screenshot right away. So this is a cool feature that makes use of the area around the notch. So if LG is going to call its notch area a new second screen, it should have something like this. This is the Oppo R15 Pro. Moving on to the cameras. So this year, both of these lenses are 16 megapixels. One, it's obviously a main lens, and the other, it's a wide angle lens that LG's been doing for years. So I personally am a little bit disappointed in the wide angle camera this year because LG decided to narrow the field of vision. In previous LG phones, the wide angle lens stretched up to 120 degrees, which results in a lot of dramatic images. So I wrote this article last year about how much I love the LG G6's wide angle lens. So I'll give you an example why. Because Hong Kong is very tight. So a lot of times when I need to take photos of a storefront or a graffiti on a wall, I have no room to back up. So I like that I can hit the wide angle lens and it will automatically allow me to take in the whole frame. And when I travel, it actually looks really good. So this is in Berlin. It's the memorial to the murdered Jews by the Nazis. I shot this with the Samsung Galaxy S8. Pretty nice photo. But then from the exact same spot, I used the LG G6's wide angle lens. And you look at this image, it's a lot more dramatic, right? So likewise, with this dinner scene right here, I shot this image with the LG G6's normal camera, and this is all I could take in. And I switch over to the wide angle lens, and I can get in the entire table, including both my friends, all the food on the table, and even the dog. This is just a cooler, more dramatic shot. And I wouldn't be able to take this image if with any other phone unless I stood on top of a chair or used a selfie stick, which is stupid. I never use selfie sticks. So LG's wide angle lens this year, it's only 105 degrees instead of 120 degrees. So we'll go into it really quick. So you see the field of vision, it's not as wide as before. I think on an older LG phone, you'll also be able to get like this part of the frame and this part of the frame with, you know, just holding the phone like this. So now instead I don't get it. And I'll show you a sample really quick. It's slightly less dramatic than before. Okay, so this is a normal photo I took with the G7. Now we'll swap to the wide angle lens. You see, this is the wide angle lens. The difference isn't that dramatic. So LG made this change because it wanted to eliminate the kind of fisheye distortion effect around the corners of previous wide angle lens. Because the wide angle lens before was so wide that the corners were a little bit distorted. I didn't quite notice it, but I think if you really pick it apart, you are able to see it. I guess like right here in the corner is slightly distorted. But you know, I didn't really mind because I feel like if you're gonna have a second lens dedicated to wide angle, then please give me the widest angle possible. So we'll talk about the camera app really quick. Very easy to use. So you swipe to go to selfies, swipe to bring back, and then you have a video record button right here, photo shutter, and then right here tap in the gallery, and you also have this to quick share photos. So you see there's two buttons here. One is portrait mode, which allows you to take, as the name implies, bokeh effects, and the effects is pretty good. So this is a bokeh shot of my girlfriend. The effect comes out pretty nicely, and you can also shoot bokeh with the selfie camera too this year. So this is a shot with the selfie camera. I think it looks pretty good, and impressively, the selfie bokeh effect is completely software because this, you know, there isn't a second selfie camera to identify the background. So this is pretty fun, I think. But back to the camera app. So you also see that in addition to portrait, there's AI cam. That's because this phone's full name is LG G7 ThinQ. ThinQ is LG's AI line. So this phone has AI, and the AI cam works very similarly to Huawei It's MPU. That means the phone can recognize scenes. So I'll show you an example really quick. Okay, so I'm gonna hit the AI button, and then it will now analyze this item. So you see that there's little words that pop up. I think it's a nice touch. It kind of shows you that the phone is actually thinking. So you see it says musical instrument, close up, music. So it's correctly identifying that this is a musical instrument. And then ultimately it decided to pop up a person, which is not accurate. I think maybe because it's picking up the picture in the back. But it does, I would say 75% of the time it is accurate. So when I bring this over to flowers, it will say flower. When I bring over the food, it will say food. When I bring over the text, it will say text. But it's a little bit slower than the Huawei P20 and the Mate 10's MPU. On that phone, it recognizes scenes immediately. On the LG devices, it takes like a few seconds and it'll pop up these words to kind of show you it's thinking, and then it'll pop up a corner. And then after that, once it identifies what it's looking at, it will adjust the photo accordingly, at least according to what LG thinks will make for a better photo. And I find the results a little bit hit and miss, so I'll show you some samples really quick. So this steak here is shot without AI, so normal. And then once I turned on AI, you see that it's a little bit redder. Like it realized that this is a piece of steak, and then I guess it felt like steak should be a little bit brighter, redder, to show the medium rareness of it, I guess. So it pumped up the contrast a little bit. This isn't that good an example. On my other LG device that I tested in Seoul, there was a really good example showing how it changed a bowl of Korean noodles. So I'll find that for you really quick. Here you go. So I shot this in Korea with the previous LG G7 that I tested. So this is shot without AI, and then you scroll down a little bit with AI boosted. You see it's a lot more punchy, a lot more red. So I think this actually did help in making this. I don't even know what this is. This is a Korean dish. Korean food is just awesome. They taste great. They look great. So I think this really made the dish look even better than here, which already looked pretty damn good. And you know, overall, the G7's camera is very strong. So check out these images here. So this is shot with AI, and again, recognize that this is scenery, greenery, and immediately pumped up the greens a little bit. Contrast got pushed up, and just kind of, you see a little bit more kind of like dynamic range in this photo. And you have another image here, shot in wide angle lens. This is a bokeh shot. So the bokeh effect here, it's very natural. In general, I like the bokeh effect of the LG G7. It's a little bit more natural than on other phones, such as say the Huawei P20 Pro. So I'll show you an example really quick I shot yesterday on my girlfriend. Again, let me go back up here. So you see, I shot these two images. On the right is the Huawei P20 Pro. So notice that they kind of made her face all white. It kind of looks a little bit scary, to be honest. And on top of that, the blur is a little bit too strong. The depth of field, it almost looks like on the Huawei P20 Pro, she almost doesn't look natural. It looks like I photoshopped her into this background. Whereas on the LG device, it's a lot more natural and her skin tone's a lot closer to real life. So I'll show you more photo samples here. Just a very strong camera all around. You know, the camera focuses very fast. And then the Pro mode is very useful if you want to tweak white balance and manual focus and all of that. So this shot came out excellent. And then right here, it's a wide angle version of it. So it still looks pretty damn good, but I just wish it gets even wider. Oh yeah, as you can see here, there's kind of moving photos. I don't know what LG calls it, but the iPhone calls it live photos, I believe. So basically it records a short video clip before or after the photo. But I find that on LG's implementation, it actually when you turn it on, it actually slows down the shutter speed a little bit. So I ended up turning it off. I'd rather get faster shutter speed than get this like half a video clip. So another thing that this camera can do is in low light situation, it will automatically go into this mode called bright mode, which uses a process called pixel binning, which combines 4 pixels into one to pull in more light information to produce a brighter image. Unfortunately, I find the LG G7's low light performance still inferior to the Samsung Galaxy S9 or the Huawei P20 Pro. In general, I mean, it's not a bad shot at all, but just if you take the exact same image with the Huawei P20 Pro, it looks a little bit more dynamic. But you know, the Huawei P20 Pro is the GOAT right now in terms of low light photography. So you see both of these images, they look very different. They have different takes, but I really like Huawei's implementation better on the right. LG's is a lot more natural though, but you look closely, Huawei's photo is more sharp compared to the LG's image, and then there's a little bit of overexposure on the lights too. So in general, bright mode just produces really good shots, but not the best. So we'll check out videos. So the LG G7, it's a very strong video recorder. Like you see right here, details is excellent, and stabilization, it's really good in the day. At night, stabilization takes a slight hit, but still definitely more than serviceable, and definitely among some of the better video recorders out there. It's definitely better than the Huawei P20 Pro in video. But I would say again, the Samsung Galaxy S9 is probably still a better video recorder. So you see at night right now, there's a little bit of kind of the camera shakes as I'm walking. We'll check out one more video. This is shot with a wide-angle lens. So I really like wide-angle lens because it allows me to take in the full band when otherwise it wouldn't be possible because this room is very tight. So sound recording is good. You know, there's no distortion even though the room is very loud. So this is the band that I play and I'm on the drums. You can't see me right now. But the sound comes off very clear. There's like minimal distortion even though the decibels in the room must be very loud. It was like hurting my ears. So now in terms of battery life, there's only a 3000 mAh battery in this, so it's a little bit smaller than usual, and a lot of people were kind of concerned. But I think the Snapdragon 845 really helps kind of battery efficiency. So battery life on this is decent. It can't quite last me all day, but that's because I'm a very heavy user. So it does not last me all day. So it definitely can't compete with the Huawei P20 Pro, which almost always lasts me all day until, you know, I can go out all day and not worry about the battery life at all. That's not the case of the G7. If I go out, start my day early-ish, like 10, I would say by 9 p.m., 10 p.m., which is 12 hours later, the phone, it's down to like under 10%. That's in critical condition. But luckily, this phone charges really fast. It's Quick Charge 3.0, and you can charge this wirelessly. So a lot of times when I'm working, I'll just leave this on the wireless charging dock. So that means the phone is always topped up. So I haven't had any major issues yet. But you know, I'm a little bit spoiled because I work at home and I live in Hong Kong, a very modern city. If you live somewhere, say if you work in construction where you have to be out all day, then this phone won't last you all day. So you'll need a portable battery pack or just go with a phone with a larger battery size. But overall, I'm very happy with the LG G7. You know, I might be a little bit biased, I'll be honest, because I love the G line. G3 is my first Android phone. I think ultimately, I would still prefer to use the Huawei P20 Pro as my daily driver because, one, the battery life issue. It's a longer battery life. And then two, this camera just at night is just stunning. So, like I took this photo earlier at 4 a.m. out in the street. So the Huawei P20 Pro's camera at night is the game changer for me. So I'm back to this as my daily driver. But the LG G7, it's probably going to be a cheaper phone. I don't think LG's announced pricing yet, but this phone's probably going to be like at least 100 to 150 US cheaper than the Huawei P20 Pro. So I think the LG G7 is definitely worth considering. On top of that, if you're American, you can't really buy this phone officially anyway, so your choices are down to if you're an Android user anyway, the Pixel, LG G7, or the Samsung Galaxy S9. So I think when you have all that considered, the LG G7 as probably the cheapest of the bunch, it's definitely worth considering. I think the wide-angle lens, it's very useful, even though it's slightly less useful than the LG V30's wide-angle lens. It's still useful, so this is still going to be my travel phone. Whenever I travel, I'm still going to have this phone on me, and this is still going to be a really good secondary phone for me. But you know, I'm spoiled for choice. For a lot of other people, this will be an excellent first phone. Thanks for watching.